Welcome to Learning with AI, a Scholars Tech podcast. In each episode, we explore how artificial intelligence is changing the way we learn, teach, and think. Through conversations with educators, researchers, students, and academic leaders, we discuss the ideas and challenges shaping the future of learning. At Scholars Tech, we believe AI doesn't replace learning, it enhances it. AI isn't just changing education, it's changing society. Today, Professor Marx Gomez-Liendo shares why the most important questions about AI aren't just technological, but human. We hope you enjoy this conversation. Let's get started.
Welcome to Learning with AI, a podcast from Scholars Tech. We bring together voices from across the academic world to explore how AI is changing the way we teach, learn, lead, and think. No hype, no easy answers, just honest conversation about a complicated moment. I'm your host, Gladys Mercier, and in this episode, our guest is Professor Marx Gomez-Liendo. Marx is a sociology professor at Anza. Welcome, Marx. So you're a sociology professor. To begin, it might be helpful to our audience to have you tell us, what does a sociology lens bring to a conversation?
Great. Thank you, Gladys, for the invitation. I'm really excited to be part of this podcast. Sociology, I will say, simply put, kind of like a basic textbook definition. We focus on studying social interactions, human interactions at different scales. It could be small groups, medium-sized groups, large groups, a country, a society, or different global issues in the world. So we have different theoretical approaches, different ways of conducting research, and we bring our insights, evidence-based, to all types of conversations. It could be technology, education, politics, cultures, you name it. So we have this training to connect what we usually perceive as personal problems or personal issues to larger social context, like how unemployment, for example, is related to economic policies, how AI is related to changes in education, government, things like that. So that's basically the 2 cents we will bring to any conversation.
Excellent. Thank you. So what led you to become interested in sociology, and what is your research about in that space today?
Yeah, I will say that since I was a kid, my dad, he studied political science, so he and my mom, they named me Marx because of Karl Marx, this German philosopher. And then when I was transitioning from high school to college, I was reading about Marx because I was wondering, I was exploring, like, okay, what was this name? Why? And then I found out sociology. And then I started reading about sociology, and I was like, oh, I like this. I mean, I see myself as a person who likes to observe a lot their surroundings. And you need a lot of that in sociology, and a lot of analytical mindset and imagination to make all these abstract connections. So I think that was led me to sociology. And I always tell this to my students, that I fell in love with sociology in my first lecture. I was attending my first class and we were watching a movie. I think it was Modern Times by Charles Chaplin, and I just fell in love with sociology. And then in terms of my research, I would say that I have been working on several things over the years. When I was graduating during my senior years as an undergrad, I did an honor thesis about copyright. I am no lawyer, I am a sociologist, but I was trying to understand the impacts of copyright policies in education and the idea of culture in general. And that led me to meet amazing people, scholars, activists back in my home country in Venezuela. We even created a small collective. We called it Communalized Knowledge, like how to advocate for this conversation about open education. And then I have experience working as a policy analyst. Before moving to the US, I was a research associate in a scientific institute in Venezuela, working on something called environmental sociology or political ecology. So I have been researching about different things. recently about open education and its relationship with the colonial theory. But as a side project, I am still working on, let's say, energy transitions, mining conflicts in Latin America, and all of that. But in all my research, there is this common ground base of just being aware of bringing as many perspectives as I can to the conversation, to the discussion, because I think that's a matter of cognitive justice, if you like, of making different ways of knowing visible in complex topics.
Yeah. Wow. That's a lot. That's
Yeah,
you have a lot
it's a
going
lot. Yeah.
So since we are interested in education, let's dig into a little bit more about open education. How exactly do you define that, and what are the objectives of open education?
Yeah, I would say that open education could be a research field, a research area. It could be a discussion topic. It could be a set of policies. For me, professionally speaking, it is a movement, a pedagogical movement, an andragogical movement, or a social movement in general. And I think the main claim of the movement is a series of principles that are rooted in equity, social justice, removing of all different type of barriers, and also ensuring more democratic processes in the social institution of education. I would say that in a nutshell, that's open education for me, social movement that is addressing all of that. And perhaps the tricky thing in the concept is that if we are advocating for open education, there is this question of, does that mean that there is a closed education, so to speak? And if so, in what ways is education closed to other people, so that there is this group of scholars and activists calling attention to open education as we know it?
Right, right. I wanted to mention that you had a paper recently that you wrote about open education, and also it's going to be a book chapter. You want to tell us what that's about?
So yes, I was told that that will be published as a book chapter sometime this year. But in that short piece or that short paper, basically the idea I was conveying is that open education for me as this social movement is at a crossroad. It could reinforce what I call colonial biases, or it could be an opportunity for decolonial transformation. And I like to think of open education as carrying this dual nature. So going back to the principles of this movement, accessibility, social justice, equity, and the like, if a learning material is not accessible, that is a closed educational experience to so many people. My own experience studying sociology is that I barely knew about Venezuelan sociologists or Latin American sociologists until my senior year. So there is also a closed educational experience in terms of curriculum materials or curriculum design. So that is one risk of open education that reinforce this sort of colonial hierarchies. But then the possibilities are also in terms of opening the conversation to bring different perspectives, not only in terms of student demographics, but also faculty demographics, the content, the design of the materials, the learning experiences, the learning relationships, if we want to keep these sort of vertical approaches or a more horizontal dialogical framework. So open education carries that dual nature of being both reinforcer of colonial dynamics or an opportunity to change things in a structural sense. So I don't assume open education automatically as something emancipatory, but I think it is important to ask all these questions to move the movement towards that transformational pathway.
Right. Right. So as a sociologist, you're studying how societies function and change when they come into contact with these new things, like the movement of open education. We also have a very powerful new technology called artificial intelligence, which is, one of the biggest, most powerful technologies humanity has ever seen. And so thus it also acts as a very powerful social force. I'm wondering if you could help us understand what that means and, what excites you or makes you a little nervous about when you think about like AI in general in society. We'll get to the education part later.
Yeah. Okay, so I think of myself as cautiously optimistic when it comes to AI. just because I don't want to just being automatically nihilist and say no or having this negative mindset. Of course, history has shown that there are technological changes that are not necessarily reducing inequalities. So there is still some conversation around AI and that it will reduce any inequalities or increase them. But yes, I see myself as cautiously optimistic, and I am professionally interested in the nuances around this conversation of AI, because for sure it's a disruptive technology, but it's very clear that you have uh, haters and lovers of AI. I'm interested in the in-between because I think that's the field of regulation, policies, organization, mobilization, and all of that. And I am also interested in the context because as a sociologist, technologies are not designing a social vacuum. They are designing a specific social context, cultural context. And I think it's well known for all of us that we are living in a highly accelerated time. We are doing more and more and more and more work, and it is expected to do that in less time. And then this technology appears as a sort of miracle, if you like, to help us do more things in less time. But again, we don't know if that jump in efficiency will be translated in quality time in our life, in better work-life balance, or if we are going to experience a AI brain fry because of even more work that we have to do in even less time. So that I am interested in those two things, the nuances of the conversation and the context, because for sure, yes, there are some possibilities, but as a sociologist, I think I have a professional responsibility to also bring all these cautionary questions to, provide some nuance to all this hype and provide some nuance to all this nihilistic position of no AI, because that is not enough from a policy perspective.
Right. Exactly. Right. We tend to have those two binaries. We either hate it or love it. We fear it, or we're just overly excited and think it's going to solve all the problems immediately. That's humans.
Yeah.
So now let's add all of these together. Let's see what you are thinking about, AI with open education, and what do you find interesting about that intersection?
Yes. So I already shared some concerns about OpenAI in this sort of crossroad or this dual nature. I think that artificial intelligence, in the context of this conversation, for me, the metaphor that comes to my mind is artificial intelligence as a catalyst of all these concerns. It could boost the colonial biases, or it could boost the decolonial transformation in education, in institutions. Because again, for sure, yes, it helps a lot, for example, with accessibility. And I'm not thinking of AI-generated image. We can use a human-generated image, a complex diagram or something like that, and we can use AI tools to support us in drafting and accessibility text for screen readers and all of that. So that saves time for sure. It could also help with translation if we have students that are not non-native speakers, as is my case. So you can use AI to translate the stuff, but still you need some human to double check things, because before AI, there was always lost in translation. So with AI, I'm sure there will be more things lost in translation. So there are all these things that can help. But then you have all these other concerns about data, privacy, the market landscape, all the companies, the power dynamics, and all of that. And this sort of inevitability around AI that could be a reflection of who is winning that power dynamic or that competition in the market. So, but yes, when I see that the connection between the two, I see AI as a catalyst of this. It can help for sure in increase the speed, if you like, of developing open educational resources. Of course, there is still the issue of intellectual property rights, copyrights, and all of that if we are using AI tools for that task. But yes, it is a catalyst. I don't see AI as something that is inherently good or bad. It will depend on the conversations we have and the policies we design and how we regulate all these conversations.
Yeah. And how about, what are you observing right now, like in your academic circles, with your peers? what are they doing in terms of using AI, and how do they feel about that now?
Yes, that's a great question, because that makes me think of something I have seen so far, that maybe we all colleagues, professional educators, maybe we don't necessarily have the name for that, but I see a lot of experimental open pedagogy. I mean, we are all learning with AI, as the title of the podcast. We are all learning with AI, professors, students, administrators. So I have seen that in different disciplines, professors are designing all types of approaches or assignments or like activities in class to learn together with AI. The good, the bad, the ugly. So I think that is creating a lot of opportunities for open pedagogy, which is basically how we, the possibilities of co-creating class materials, co-creating assignments, co-creating curricular units with the students, and that democratize the process of knowledge production. It's not just the knowledge expert, but the knowledge community or the learning community. So I see a lot of that. Professors that are in English, for example, teaching students the importance of writing with their own voice. And yes, you can use AI tools for proofreading purposes, but when AI is changing the tone of your writing or the nature of your writing, that's when things can get problematic, because it kind of like standardize our writing or our way of thinking. So that's one thing. I have seen professors in different disciplines like using our AI tools to, let's say, prompt them to generate an image and then analyze the potential biases behind the image design. So that's something very promising for me, that despite of the position of individual faculty, because you have them across the board, pro AI, against AI, but there is this ethical imperative of doing something about AI, creating some learning experience, learning activity. So I think that's a huge potential I have seen so far. Of course, we will need, this is my researcher hat, we will need more systematic study of all of that to see the outcomes, the good things, the bad things. But yeah, I think that's something I have seen so far, different approaches, different initiatives. In my case, the approach I am taking is just to have focus group with my students to talk about AI and address different concerns, the concerns they have in terms of their professional goals or career goals, the type of supports they want to receive from the institution and the like. Because from my discipline, I'm interested in listening to people. So I just want to hear what people have to say, and focus groups help me to do that in the context of my classes.
Yeah. Are you using a tool, an AI tool, to help you in your class?
I'm not using an AI tool for the focus group per se, but I'm using one AI tool to transcribe the conversations in the focus groups. And I like that because it's kind of like local, it's in my computer, it's not connected to the internet, so there is no risk of, putting the voice data of my students in a cloud or something like that. But probably for the next academic year, I want to experiment with different AI tools that are useful in research. Not the old school way of going to the library or spending a few amount of hours in digital databases. You now have these different AI tools that help with literature review and all of that. So I want to experiment with that in the context of my research class, which is a qualitative research methods class. So yeah, I will probably have something to report in the near future.
Wow, we'll have to come back after you've taught next semester and see how that goes. I know it's interesting that all of these good habits with AI are teachable, but it needs to be structured in the classroom so that students have an opportunity to learn those good habits instead of having AI do the work for them, for example.
Yeah.
Right. So before I get to my last question, I do want to go back a little bit to the sociology hat. So when you think of the AI enthusiast community, and what do I mean by that is maybe those people that are promoting AI faster than we can handle it, what do they have to learn from sociological thinking in terms of how can we get this right in this moment, at least for education?
Yeah, I would say that the main lesson will be the importance of having collaborative spaces and participatory methods in whatever policy or initiative they want to implement, because all this enthusiasm sometimes is overwhelming. And if institutions, organizations, educational leaders, and the like, if they are not acknowledging that there are different positions and different views and different feelings about AI, that will create resistance in organizations. That will create mistrust and or distrust among people in an organization. So yeah, it is amazing to have all this enthusiasm because that moves things to a specific direction. But I think it is important to acknowledge that and create venues for that. It could be interdisciplinary dialogues. It could be student-facing initiatives just to get input from students. In some cases, it could be community outreach events if you are a community college and then you need to connect to the communities you serve. So you need all that sort of participatory frameworks so that you don't get all this backlash. And in the process, they will also learn, because there are all these nuances or things that perhaps we are overlooking, and we cannot become aware of that if we don't have all these conversations, if we don't bring people to the conversation. And I think that is a fundamental, going back to my scholarship, that is a fundamental decolonial imperative in an ethical way. So who is left out in the conversation? What can we do to bring them to the conversation? And how can we create a space for all voices to be heard? That will be my methodological suggestion for an AI enthusiast out there. Like, we need to open the room to hear more voices.
Yes, excellent. Excellent. I think that's one of the goals of this podcast, is to get more voices and to have the discussions.
Yeah.
So my final question, and maybe you answered a little bit here, but maybe this will be more in the practical, is considering these kinds of learning communities that we want to build, how can universities and their leadership support the faculty, right, who want to use AI for good?
Yes, I would say that the support should not only be focused to the use of AI per se, but the implications of all this use. Because it's kind of similar to the issue with open education. It's not just about access. It is also about knowledge production, knowledge dynamics, all of that. So the support should not be only focused to AI use, like giving for professors or students a pro license to use this particular AI tool. It's more than that. You need to support your community in a deep understanding of literacy, not only in terms of the use of the actual tool, but also in terms of civic literacy, if you like how are we understanding the implications of this in terms of, again, data privacy, security concerns, algorithmic bias, all of that. And in that sense, I think maybe it's not the only approach. I don't think it's the only approach or the best approach, but within the California community college system, the chancellor's office, they have a team, they created this framework. I think the acronym is HUMANS, HUMANS. So I think the acronym stands for human-centered approach, universal support, or the possibility to opt out of AI experiences. So it's not the only way. You can opt out of all these experiences and still get human support in your learning journey. The management of privacy controls, how data is used, what type of data is used, and all of that. Protections against algorithmic discrimination, notice and explanation. I mean, the responsibility of educational institutions to inform their community the scope and the limitations of whatever AI tool they want to support or bring to campus or encourage faculty to experiment. And last but not least, safety and security, or this imperative of constantly monitoring the outcomes with AI tools, what is working, what is not working, and what needs to be fixed. So I think that humans approach is one proposal that is out there, that it helps institutions to then devise actions or design actions that are more related to their context and their specificities. But it has all these series of important considerations in mind that is just beyond the use of AI. the use of the tools. So I think that is a good way. Of course, different institutions will have different challenges in terms of funding, infrastructure, things like that. But at least there is a guiding framework that can help in terms of supporting faculty or students. Because the last thing I would say is that it is a bit unrealistic, I guess, to expect that leaderships know what to do with AI if we are all learning with AI or about AI. So we are all in this together, and we need to find these spaces where we can all co-design the approaches, co-design the initiatives, monitoring stuff. So I would say that will be my holistic understanding of supporting faculty or students when it comes to AI.
Great. That is super fantastic. We have a couple of minutes, so if there are any additional closing thoughts or ideas you'd like to share with the audience, you can go for it now. It has been a great conversation. I love the questions. I think that my final reflection will be a call to action to claim our agency. All of this seems so overwhelming that it looks like the technology will do things for us, and we are forgetting that the technology in the first place was created by humans, and we have agency to regulate that, to shape the design. So it's a process of mutual shaping. So yes, the technology is out there, it's already shaping institutions, education, healthcare, government, politics, and all of that, but we can shape that technology in return. We are in that process. So I just want people to claim their agency, to procure spaces or to open spaces to have these conversations. It could be this sort of podcast, it could be an open forum in educational institutions, so on and so forth. And the last thing would be to develop all these frameworks that allow, in the context of education, allow higher education institutions to have some sort of control, in the good sense, about the technologies that are being implemented on campus. Again, in terms of security, privacy, and all of that, it could not be that approach where companies just do everything and then institutions, they lose their agency. So they also have a responsibility to know the technologies, the pros, the cons, and how can the technology be redesigned to better meet the needs of a specific institution or a specific community. That would be my final reflection, like the importance of our agency. We created all these things. They don't create us, so we need to be mindful of that agency. Excellent. Fantastic points. Fantastic insights. What a way to end. Thank you, Marx, for joining us today. And thank you to our audience for watching. The references from today's episode will be provided at the end of this podcast. Learning with AI is a production of ScholarStack, offering AI native infrastructure for education, built on learning science, and powered by AI. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of Learning with AI, a ScholarStack podcast. We created this space for educators, students, researchers, and academic leaders to explore how AI is shaping the future of learning. To continue the conversation, follow ScholarStack on LinkedIn and visit scholarstackai.com for more resources and insights. If there's a question you want us to explore or a guest you'd like to hear from, let us know. The future of learning is something we're building together. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you in the next episode.